Helpful for life.
So, you've learned how to cook the proteins. Now let's talk about the item on the plate that a lot of people aren't as excited about, and that's vegetables. You may not have realized it, but the method in which you cook your vegetables can have a huge impact on how it tastes, how it looks, and even how the nutrients stay within it. So for today, we're going to talk about a handful of those different methods, the main ones that we like to use, and the pros and cons of each of them, give you some tips for each method. The first one is one that I didn't even want to teach, but it's just the only way some people knew how, and that is boiling and steaming. So, like I said, personally, I'm not a big fan of this method, and that's because it doesn't let you get that delicious browning, the Maillard reaction that you get when you cook at those other methods. And unfortunately, boiled and steamed is what a lot of people grew up on. And in my opinion, that's why a lot of people don't like vegetables. To put it bluntly, I think that vegetables are better cooked pretty much any other way. Now, a great example for this is Brussels sprouts. I mean, look at these two pictures, one that's been boiled and one that's been roasted. Look at the roasted one and tell me you don't think that looks better. So, I know it really pains me to say this, but I'm not always right, and some people have their own tastes and maybe they prefer boiled or steamed. Okay, so, if that may be you, let me tell you a little bit more about the benefits of boiling or steaming so you can consider if it's something that you may want to cook. So, the four main benefits of boiling and steaming, as far as I see it, is it's easy, it's fast, there's a pretty big margin for error so you don't mess it up, and it actually can be healthier. Now, it's easy because if you want to, you can even just buy a bag that's frozen, throw it in your microwave, press a button, and it actually steams in its own bag. That's pretty darn easy. It's fast because that high temperature water or steam cooks the vegetables relatively quickly. It only takes a handful of minutes. And that bigger margin of error is nice, especially for the newer cooks. However, if you do overcook the veggie, it can become mushy, which in my opinion, it's worse to be mushy than it is to be too crispy and delicious and browned like you would get in the other methods. Now, this is a healthier method for a couple of reasons. And the first one is you can cook it with less oil or fat than you would with some of the other methods. Now, if you're going to cut out fat, make sure to leave at least some in because certain vitamins and minerals only dissolve in fats. So if you don't have those, then your body won't absorb those nutrients. The other reason it can be healthier is because when you steam your vegetables, the vegetables actually retain more of those nutrients. Personally, this isn't that big of a deal for me because in my mind, if you're doing good enough to eat vegetables, you should just give yourself a pat on the back. So what if you're not getting 100% of the maximum nutrients? The more important thing is that you're eating the vegetables. So, if you do decide that you want to boil or steam your vegetables, let me give you a few tips so you can make them taste even better. The first one is to use a broth or some other kind of flavorful liquid as your steaming or boiling liquid. This will really amp up the flavor. The second one is season them. I don't know why I have to say this, but I've had one too many vegetables that have nothing on them. Not even salt. I mean, come on, what's wrong with you people? The next thing is to toss your vegetables with some fresh herbs after they're done cooking. That can make them taste a lot better. Or maybe even some garlic infused olive oil. That sounds good. And then another tip is to use citrus or some kind of acid, whether that be squeezing a lemon in or using the zest of the lemon or maybe even a splash of vinegar. That acid can help perk it up and make it taste a lot better. And then the last tip is a little bit of a cheat, but that is after you're done boiling or steaming it, put it in a pan and get it nice and brown and crispy. Which brings me to the next method of cooking, which is sauteing your vegetables in a skillet. Now, the recipe for this is pretty simple actually. Just get a medium-sized pan, put it on your heat, medium to medium-high heat, add a little olive oil or some sort of other fat, and then throw in your cut up vegetables. Now, a pro tip for you is if you want them to be extra brown and extra crispy, don't move them that much. Letting them sit there in the same spot for a while will help them develop that delicious crust, which means flavor and texture and awesomeness. Now, how long these take to cook obviously depends on the different vegetables, but they can be done in as little as say about 10 minutes. However, if you want to add extra crunch, extra browning, extra flavor, you want to give it a little bit of extra time. And FYI, if you're looking for more flavor more browning. Cut them into smaller pieces and maybe even use a bigger pan if you want to. If they're crowded, they may end up steaming more so than they will brown. Now let me give you a few tips about specific vegetables and some good flavor combinations that go with them. The first one's going to be carrots. And if you have some carrots and you add a little bit of salt and pepper, and then you add a little bit of honey and then maybe some pecan or another type of nut, then it makes these delicious honey glazed carrots. Fun fact, that video is coming at you a little later in the course. Now with green beans or snap peas, those go really well with just a little garlic, salt, and pepper. And then for zucchini or any kind of squash, salt, pepper, and then maybe even a little seasoning blend like Tony Chachere's or Cavender's can make those things really taste good. Speaking of tasting good and other ways to amp up the flavor, try grilling your vegetables. This is especially good if you're using charcoal or some kind of wood, but any grill will add that nice grill flavor that we all know and love. Now, when you're looking at a grill, you may say, oh, there's holes in these grates, where are all my veggies gonna go? But do not despair, because there are solutions for this problem. The first one is pretty straightforward, and that's buying something called a vegetable basket or a vegetable pan. And basically this is just a specialized pan that has smaller grates or smaller holes so the vegetables don't fall through. Now, if you don't want to spend the money on that, then you can also just try using aluminum foil. You can try just laying a sheet of aluminum foil across the grates, although I don't know how well that would work. Or you can kind of form the aluminum foil into like a little boat or a little mini pan or whatever. One other tip, if you're using aluminum foil, get the heavy duty stuff. I think they even sell grill kind because it'll be a little bit thicker and I'll have less chance of tearing. Now, if you decide that the veggie basket is the way you want to go, make sure to check out the one we recommend in the PDF below. It's the same PDF from the Prep Your Setup milestone. Now, what veggies go really well on the grill? Well, corn is a great one. Any kind of zucchini or squash. Asparagus is one of our favorites. Carrots, bell peppers, really a lot of them go pretty well on there. And an onion is one that's just so good. And it's actually so easy. You can even just cut an onion in half and put it face down on the grill and it's gonna be good. It just will. But that brings us to our last method. Of course, we save the best for last, and that is oven roasted. Now, I like this method the most because it really gives it that Maillard reaction, really gets it nice and crispy and brown and flavorful. Now, the recipe for this is pretty simple, kind of similar to the skillet one. Just get a sheet pan and then throw on your chopped up veggies and toss it with some olive oil, some salt and pepper, put it at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for about 20 minutes. Now, the veggies are gonna be done probably by then, but what you really want is to get some browning and some crispiness. Now, if you're brand new to the crispy game, you may not wanna go as far as I do, but it's up to you how long you let it go. So after that 20 minutes, you may wanna flip them over, toss them a little bit, move them around, and then put them back in, and check every, say, 5 or 10 minutes until they get the desired level of doneness that you want. As for specific veggies, asparagus is really good, especially if you add a little bit of squeeze of lemon and some freshly shaved Parmesan on top. Broccoli is also really good this way. One thing we've also done with broccoli is add some breadcrumbs, which gives it another layer of crunch and another layer of flavor. Then there's cauliflower, which is broccoli's cousin or whatever, and it's really good with some garlic powder, some curry powder, and some paprika. But another spice a lot of people like on roasted cauliflower is something called harissa. You should look it up if you haven't tried it before. And then lastly, one of my all-time favorite veggies to be roasted is Brussels sprouts. Now, depending on just how crispy and how crunchy you like them, you can cut them thinner or thicker. At the very least though, you probably want to cut them in half. Now, personally, I like to kind of almost shave them, make them super thin. And then they're kind of like chips almost, they're so good. And with Brussels sprouts or any of these veggies, of course you can amp up the flavor by adding other things to it, whether it be herbs or bacon or a balsamic drizzle, anything like that will make your veggies that much more delicious. And at the end of the day, you should figure out which way you like to prep your veggies, how you can make them tasty, because you want to make food that you like and also that's good for you. So try and combine those wherever you can. Well, that wraps it up for our veggies. Let's dive into what is a lot of people's favorite food groups, and that is starches.